So I'm going to be talking about sales as a science or an art. What is it, right? And I want us to explore a little bit tonight. But to do that, we need to loosen up a little bit. I'm American, right? So I'm always loud, you know, make people do stuff. So what I'd like for us to do is play a little game. You guys up for it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So one person's up for it. All right. So here's what we're going to do. You have literally 30 seconds to turn to the person next to you, and you need to sell them something that you are wearing or something you've got in your pocket. You have 30 seconds to sell that person. Before you do that, decide who's going to be the seller and who's going to be the customer. So turn to that person, decide who's going to be what. All of the customers. If the salesperson that was selling to you really convinced you, raise your hand. Alright, so we got a few salespeople. Wow. How many of you felt like something was being shoved down your throat? Raise your hand. Okay, so my history in 10 seconds. I've worked in startups, I've launched my own businesses, I've worked in corporate for 20 years. You know, I'm a musician. I've done a lot of different crazy, wild things, but I absolutely love sales. And I've been doing it for a very, very long time. And I've become a bit geeky about sales and the human psyche behind sales. Because there is something about it that is extremely human that we miss. And so when we're talking about art versus science, okay, there's a lot of startups right now. I actually spend some time, I work at Dell by day, and by my other time I spend helping companies sort of grow their products and sales strategies and that sort of stuff. And I run into a lot of different startups who are trying to create a science behind selling their product. And I run into way less who are trying to use sort of an art to selling behind that. What I don't see is people sort of mixing those two. So these guys who presented before me, very, very cool presentation, artsy, I loved it, the killing zombies, all of that. Very practical, very nice layout of Sales 101. It's a perfect world matching together for what I want to talk to you about. But before I do, I want to read to you. Now I got this. This is a LinkedIn message. How many of you love LinkedIn? Okay, I feel the same way. This is a LinkedIn message. This is the one I got from walking from Brick Lane today over to here. I got this one, and this is one of probably 50 to 60 I get every week. Now I work in a corporate right now. So I'm constantly having people ping me about stuff, but this is what I get, and it is typical. So I wanted to read it to you. Hi Todd, thanks for accepting my connections request on LinkedIn, which I pretty much accept everybody because I kind of like this stuff. And I kind of like to stick it to the man sometimes. And so it said, just want to introduce myself, I am and I've been 30 years experience with leadership, and I want to tell you this, and blah, 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 blah. Okay, I get these all the time. They always go to my delete. All right, always. So there is so much of a cold, open kind of sell going on. There's mass marketing campaigns. People can tell you all they want that they work. I think that the numbers maybe make them work at some point, but you end up pissing a lot of people off along the way and get on no spam lists and all this sort of stuff, right? So I'm very much towards the art side of selling, but there is a science behind it. So I get these kind of things all the time. Now I became, like I said, I became a little bit of a geek about the psyche behind this and about the sales. But at the back, on the other side of a sales process is always a human. Always. We aren't selling to robots yet, okay? Maybe we will one day. And robots aren't necessarily selling to us yet, but maybe they will one day. But right now, on the other side of a sales process, this process you saw laid out very nicely for the 101, there is a human on the other side of that. So we have to always approach the sales process as we are approaching a human, okay? So you guys were selling to them, and you were trying to sell them your product. You were pretty much doing what the LinkedIn thing that I just read you, right? It's natural for us to go, here's a product, and this is what it does. This is my new SaaS, right? And it does this, and it'll do this for your company. And I get these emails all the time. But occasionally, I will get a great email from someone. And the fact is, I got one three weeks ago, about 3.5 weeks ago. I got an email from someone who had literally taken the time to do his research on me, and he took one of my articles that I published on LinkedIn, and he actually referred to a line in there and made a comment about it. That's how he opened his email. And the title of his email was the title of my article. So I opened it, right? I thought it was somebody who wanted to engage with me on the article, but it wasn't. It was a guy who actually wanted to sell me something. But he did an incredibly good job of then bridging what he said to me up front to what his product was. And I said, you know what? I am so happy that I got this email from you today. I will give you, he had asked me for 15 minutes of my time, or 10 minutes of my time. And I said, I will give you 10 minutes of my time. Period. After 10 minutes, I'm hanging up the phone. So call me on this day at this time. I will give you 10 minutes. The phone call went about 12. He actually impressed me. I was pretty impressed with the guy. But I kind of like to do this. How many of you have seen the movie Boiler Room? Okay. You're at a growth startup meeting, right? And we're talking about sales, and we're talking about connecting with people and passion and all of this. Go watch The Boiler Room. It's a little bit older movie, okay? It's like late 90s, early 2000s, but it's an incredible movie. And one of the greatest lines in there, they say, is that a sale is made on every call. You either close them, or they close you on why they're not going to buy, okay? So that's a very hardcore Wolf of Wall Street, you know, always be closing kind of movie, but it's a lot of fun. So let's kind of get back to this art versus science. And let's get back to reaching out to people and the human side of sales. So I worked for a startup in Austin, Texas. And in that startup, we were selling a SaaS software. And it was around competitive intelligence to e-commerce companies. So like Best Buy and Home Depot was one of our clients. And Home Depot actually ended up acquiring us. And so our little company became Home Depot's Innovation Labs. But they bought it for the technology, and I was in sales, so by Todd, I was gone from the job. I went to work for a competitor of ours. I didn't have to sign a non-compete, so that I was allowed to go work for this competitor, and it was a company based out of Israel. And I loved these guys. They just really were passionate about the product. It was so incredible. And it was competitive intelligence to retail market, same thing. And I was the only person in North America selling. And sometimes I kind of like to do this, I'm a bit like you. I kind of like to, you know, stick it to the man sometimes, right? And so I took an approach, a provocative approach, to going and getting another customer. And what I did is I sent Lowe's, which is the biggest competitor of Home Depot, I sent them an email, and I sent 3 of the high-level leaders, COO and some other people, head of marketing, and I sent them an email, and the title was, I know what Home Depot's up to. And I don't know how many of you know about like tracking tools on open rates and all this kind of stuff. I'm a big time geek in that. I love HubSpot sales for multiple reasons, but and they didn't pay me to say that. But I love it for multiple reasons because I can see who's open. My wife and kids say I'm creeping on people, but I like to see who's open my emails, right? And so these people had opened my emails, and it started opening throughout the next few days. So I've been doing this long enough to know that they're not just opening it and reading it again, they're forwarding it, and then someone else is opening it, and then they're forwarding it. So 3 days later, I get an email from someone I did not email, who said, hey Todd, I'd like to talk to you about the email that you sent, blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay, great, let's talk on Friday. So I talked to the super nice lady who was head of director in marketing, who worked up for the head of marketing, and obviously it had been passed down to her, and she said, the first thing out of her mouth, she said, you have a really unique approach here. Do you realize I've been in meetings for 3 days because of your email? and so that to me was like it. Like I could have quit and retired and just, I would have been so happy. Because that was actually the part behind it. That's the passion behind it, right? Like when you really love this, you really love it when something happens and something moves forward. And I said, okay, great. Short story is we won the Lowe's contract eventually. It took us about a year to win it, but we won it, right? And it all started with a provocative email. And so I started really testing this. I do A/B testing all the time on emails because I love it. I love to see if people open it. My open rates are north of 60% on the emails that I send. I don't send mass emails, ever. I send personal emails for sales. And it takes longer, but I would rather send 10 very, very good, well thought out emails that people are going to open, read, and respond to me than to send 10,000 emails that may get opened and nobody really care about, right? So it's very much of an art for me, but there's a science behind it, right? So I said all that to say that the open rates were kind of important. I'm kind of getting into it. I'm loving it. I start getting my response rates up higher because I'm just trying different things. I got in the door. I was doing some lead gen for a startup that wanted to get in the door in some companies, and I got in the door at Netflix, and so what I found was really interesting, and this might be something you can try if you're trying to do your products, is first of all, personalize your emails, very much so. Okay, don't patronize the people you're personalizing to. Like, be thought-provoking. I always go look at the person's Twitter. I see what they're up to. If they're in Barcelona at a conference, I may or may not email them that week, right? So like, I watch. I'm interested in the people behind this process. So, so anyway, the part about getting into Netflix was putting in the subject line their latest hashtag campaign. That's what I put in there. And I was reaching out to the head of marketing. Okay, this was for an e-commerce platform, and so I put their hashtag. It gets opened, right? They created it. They're going to open it. They want to know what people are saying about their hashtag. And then I put a very short sentence that just says something that I like about their campaign. Like, this is what you did in the campaign. This is really cool. I like this. Period. I'm not trying to do anything at that point, right? But then comes the bridge, right? And this is where the science comes in behind it. Is bridging from how you opened it to actually getting somebody to engage with what you're doing. I never put a product text sheet. I never attach one. I never puke my product on an email. I simply engage with the person on something that they're familiar with. And then I make a bridge from that into what I'm doing with my company, right? And so after I make that bridge, and you have to think through this, it takes a long time, but it's worth it, right? After you make that bridge, then you can say, this is what we're doing, 1 sentence, 2 sentences max. And then if you want to read more about it, there's some info below, right? I never go, oh, here's my product, and then some call to action, can we have a coffee sometime this week? Right? I get this all the time, and I'm not going to go have a coffee with somebody who's puked their product on you. So be creative. Realize there are humans behind what you're doing, and engage with your customers. One final thing, I don't know how much time I have, but one final thing, am I good? One final thing I want to talk about is I talk with startups a lot. I've been in the UK for about 5 years, and I've been engaging in the startup community for most of that. And one of the things that I see happening with startups a lot is they want to connect with corporates, right? They want to sell to corporates, but they hang out with people in startups all the time. Like, you come to startup events constantly, right? So go to some events where corporate people will be there and start engaging and networking with those people. If you don't know any corporate people, send me an email. Make it a good one. Send me an email. And I'll connect you in with some people that I know in the corporate world that are reflective of what you're trying to sell, right? And just spend some time with it. It doesn't have to be a meeting in their office. Find out where corporate people hang out, right? There's a lot of events. Go to Meetup. There's a lot of events where corporates hang out, right? And you just have to find them. If you don't, then ask your friends who are in corporates to introduce you or to invite you to an outing or to something that they're doing. That's how you do it. You have to build your own networks. I find places that I really want to do stuff in. Right now, it's Oxford. I decided I'm just going to go see what I can do in Oxford. I didn't know anybody in Oxford, but I met one person and I asked them, can you introduce me to a few other people? And then a few other people. And I have this huge network in Oxford, right? Huge network. Because I just decided I was going to do it, right? And you have to get off your ass, get out of startup events, Go to where your customers are and engage with them. It's a human side of things, and that is very much an art and a skill. But there's science behind everything that you're doing. So hopefully this has been helpful to you. I'd love to talk to you more at the pub.